Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks for having me here to present what we're doing in Murmuration. Let me share the screen. Okay, so I guess this is showing up nicely. So basically, Murmuration is actually a company that was created for this exact purpose. First of all, to quantify the environment and to see the first vertical is really applied to tourism. Our objective, our aim is to actually put the environmental dimension at the center of every decision-making process. This is something that might seem broad, but bear with me during the presentation, you will get exactly what we're doing. Two types of activities, mainly. We develop indicators on various environmental domains, so air, water, urbanization, biodiversity, etc. That are mainly derived from satellite Earth observation data. We extract actual indicators assessing the impact on society, economy, environment, etc. And we present the data via dashboards to decision makers, and I'll provide a couple of examples on that a bit later. We also have a branch that is fully dedicated to the general public that is called flokeo.com, and here basically our motivation there was to, when we tackle a problem like sustainable tourism, for example, to provide an answer to every stakeholder. So if we are a policymaker, if we are a local authority, we will look into the indicators and dashboards. If we are the general public, we'll probably need to be in contact with sustainable tourism engaged professionals like travel agencies, hotels, etc., that are acting in situ, I would say, to support sustainability and sustainable projects. I will not talk a lot about flokeo.com, but obviously feel free to visit. It's full of activities on the various social medias. There are a lot going on. So yeah, feel free to look at that. Now back to the challenge. The link between human activities and the impact on the environment, especially for tourism, is something that is extremely important, and that is being increasingly requested by the policy level, but also industrial level, and obviously as citizens as well. The idea is that we are able to monitor now the increase, for example, pollution, land degradation, etc. But liaising this or putting this in correlation to the anthropogenic activities, the human activities, is challenging. We are providing a solution that is based on satellite Earth observation data, using also statistics, in situ measurements, human flow modeling, and so on, to provide clear, unbiased information for government and coordination bodies, visualizing the data in advanced way, just to be able at a glance to spot, for example, trends, or to detect areas that need more attention, stuff like that. I like this scheme. I will not obviously go in these details, but these were one of the first exercises that we did. Is basically we have all of this wealth of data from, for example, Copernicus program, whether it's directly the Sentinel data or the core services data that can be used in multiple domains, and we wanted to link them to the tourism activities, whether they are valid or not, whether they are relevant or not in terms of revisit, resolution, physical quantities that are able to measure, and so on. So we are heavy users of these data, Sentinels and Copernicus core services, but not only. We also use, for example, Eurostat data when we are in European context. We use World Bank data. We use IATA data as well for arrivals. We use social media data, and so on and so forth. There are a number of data sources that we're using. If we look at the top part of this, so first half, so the top half of the scheme, we can see physical measurements, so air quality, water consumption and quality, urban sprawl, and artificialization. Here, these are, I would say, directly linked to data sets from Copernicus, but if we look at domain-specific, so tourism-specific thematics, so coastal tourism, mountain and rural tourism, here we also find interesting data, like we can measure coastal erosion, for example, from Sentinels 2 and 1. Seawater pollution using Sentinel-3. We have a lot of work on floating algae, for example, detection using Sentinel-2 near to the shores or Sentinel-3, MODIS data as well. When it comes to mountain and rural tourism, we have the forest fires now, snow height, for example, and evolution throughout the years. Agrotourism, we have the regular, I would say, vegetation indices that we're all familiar with, but also protected natural areas and how they evolve in time. Evolution means whether they remain connected, for example, areas, whether they are hit by urbanization or not. Dirk also mentioned significant urbanization in different parts of the world, specifically Malta, and I have a couple of examples of that later as well. When we talk about urban tourism, there are also urban heat islands, light pollution, urban sprawl. All of this just to say that basically tourism is one of these domains that draws in, I would say, most of the competencies that evolve around Earth observation data. So that's from a technical point of view, but also from a societal point of view. Tourism is one of these. It is the, I would say, most critical domain when it comes to the equilibrium and compromises that we'll need to do in a world heavily impacted by climate change, for example. Because here we are talking mainly, when we talk about satellite data, we're talking mainly about the environmental dimension of sustainability, but also there is the economic and social leg to it that are of vital importance, and we will definitely need to do trade-offs on the local scale on whether we accept environmental degradation in favor for economical or societal benefits and so on and so forth. So it's really one of these domains that crystallizes all the compromises and trade-offs that we will be facing increasingly as we enter in a world heavily impacted by climate change. Indicators, so this is basically our catalog. So we've developed 20 indicators characterizing water, air, biodiversity, infrastructure, but also dynamics of tourism. We combine these in order to extract the information required at in the area of interest. I will not go into these details, but obviously I will be happy to share the catalog if anyone is interested. Some examples, since we had Dirk as first speaker, so I thought I would choose one of our projects, recent projects actually, that we're doing with, my colleagues are filming at the same time, that we are doing with the Malta Tourism Authority. So we have developed a visualization dashboard for various environmental quantities and link them to the tourism activities. So what you're seeing here, for example, it's really the Malta imperviousness, so soil artificialization, linked to the tourism infrastructure. So these are hotels, activities, ports, for example, leisure, beaches, and so on. So the idea, so obviously here you're seeing a static map, but we've shown them also the historical evolution of that to see if there is a link, if, for example, the urbanization is mostly induced by the tourism demand or new tourism infrastructure, or does tourism only follow the trend of urbanization in Malta, for example. Green infrastructures. So again, here the idea was to show the density of green areas in Malta, and the idea was also to highlight some sort of like quality of life for the citizens, but also for tourism for tourists as well. With, for example, the mean distance between a point and a vegetation area. Obviously, the shorter the distance, the better. These are highly interactive, I would say, dashboards. So when you click on a cell on the map, everything gets updated. You can filter. You have all sorts of filtering capabilities just to work with the data and to see if if there are trends, for example, that can be extracted. Aggregation of data as well by neighborhood on a neighborhood level, just to try to extract this quality of life indication on a district or neighborhood level. Soil humidity. We've also created a multi-temporal view of the soil humidity. So here we're talking only about green water. So this is the water in the first 20 centimeters of soil throughout the various seasons. We know that Malta is heavily relying on desalination, for example, so it's a high energy consuming industry, and the idea was to give them also a view of the the soil humidity and probably a proxy to the quantity of available naturally available water in Malta as well. This also links with tourism, as tourism infrastructures like hotels, for example, or compounds, etc., are usually suspected of heavy water usage in general due to the swimming pools, for example, and so on. Fourth example that we've developed for the Malta Tourism Authority is the air quality index. And Dirk rightly said, these are animations, but yeah, here they are just static. That the Malta, for example, when you have a heat wave in Tunisia, you definitely feel it as well in Malta. It doesn't stop there. One of our major findings basically was that air quality in Malta is heavily relying on the traffic of the maritime route that crosses just beside the island. Our conclusion is that 85% of air quality on Malta is really dependent on the amount of traffic in this maritime route. So that's one of the major conclusions as well. So this is interesting also because so the Tourism Authority had the mandate to work on reducing the air quality impact from tourism. But then we can give them I would say the maximum impact that they can have. So here we're talking about 15% or 20% of the impact. The rest, they are just following what's happening around them. Fourth example, and very interesting here, we have correlated places of residence with social media data to have some sort of environmental footprint of a tourist. So that's something that is quite advanced. Just to show, for example, if you're staying here, this is the area where you have an impact. If you're staying here, this is the area where you have an impact, and so on and so forth. So this was also quite useful indication regarding the density of visitation and the potential environmental impact per area in Malta. Last but not least, I was allowed to do so, so I'm just putting this there. We are happy to collaborate. We have advanced capabilities in the domains that I've just shown. We have identified multiple Horizon Europe calls, and I think that the team will go through these later. So we're happy to collaborate. So do not hesitate to contact us to participate with you in different projects.